All right, YouTube, I have to weigh in on the Trump University stuff, not because it's of particular interest. It's sort of a sideshow or a freak show during the election. I wanted to thin out sort of the Trump related stuff because I end up posting so many videos on Trump. It's like a continuous cascade of Donald Trump. Honestly, it gets a little bit old after a while. How much more can I fucking say about this one person in his campaign? When, I'm a libertarian, I'm really more interested in limited government as opposed to sort of the Trump of personality thing. I don't have a problem with him, but at the same time, he's not particularly my candidate. But as for the Trump University thing, it's a sideshow. It doesn't really have that much of a bearing on the election. Look, if somebody has already decided that they're going to support Trump, they're not going to stop supporting him because, oh, he's being investigated for something that already came up in the Republican debates months ago, let's face it. It doesn't matter how messy it gets. Additionally, Trump did what a lot of people think was not a great idea, which is attack the judge in the case based on his Hispanic heritage. I think it was a genius move, and I'll tell you why. Chances are the Trump University struggle, whether it goes for or against him, will drag out for a while and continue eating up the news cycle. By indicating that the judge might have some sort of systemic bias against him, if Trump wins the case, of course, it goes away. There's no fraud involved. He wins, no problem. If he loses, he'll turn around and he'll say, see, I told you that judge was biased against me, and his supporters will have no problem with this. Additionally, the judiciary system of the United States is, while slightly sheltered from the same criticism and scrutiny that's usually given to the legislative and executive branches, it's still very much an intrinsic part of the U.S. government. That's exactly what it is. Whether you're talking federal judges, the Supreme Court, it doesn't really matter. There isn't a whole lot of love for the legal system within the United States. It is marginally more popular than Congress and perhaps marginally less popular at this point than the president himself. So by attacking the legal system, does he really lose anything by that? Especially when you have the outgoing president being a fairly activist-minded Democrat. Perhaps not as far left as some of his critics would like to believe. An authoritarian, no doubt, but not, certainly not out in Bernie Sanders land. He has, of course, been implicated as being involved in some grand scam to defraud people of their constitutional liberties through the court system. It's called activist judges. Now, the same Republicans, the same right wing that whines about this when Obama's in office, didn't whine about it when Bush was in office. Then it was the left whining. It's a little bit of tit for tat. It's a little bit of the pendulum thing. But that's the perception among his fans. You think that a single diehard Trump supporter cares if he says, oh, the judge is a Mexican, so there's a problem here, a conflict of interest? No, they don't care. Do independents care? I'm wagering probably not. If a person remains an independent, despite the media, part of the Republican Party, and all of the Democratic Party labeling Trump a very dangerous, vile bigot, who absolutely hates people of color and wants to deport everybody and build the Great Wall of Trump and start World War III and all of these other things they claim that he wants to do. If you're still an independent voter, that is, you haven't yet made up your mind who you're going to support, it's fairly obvious you haven't been completely turned off by Trump's message, despite that constant cascade of negativity. So is this going to be the grain of rice that finally tips the balance against him in the general election? I'm guessing not. And his chaos strategy, by the way, makes sense. Panel after panel of people on Fox swear up and down that there's no chance that he can possibly take California. I happen to disagree. I base this partially on the fact that California, not that many decades ago, was in play. Number two, the similarity of Trump to Reagan and his strategy to Reagan's. And number three, the fact that all of the pundits, pollsters, and analysts, whoever came on the media, or at least 99% of them during the primary season, were dead wrong about absolutely everything. I have no real reason to believe that that's not going to continue. So I think, yes, it's very much in play. Perhaps a much more outside chance than New York, which is also a heavily blue state, which has one heavily blue city that he happens to be from. And certainly Pennsylvania and Michigan being in play is already a nightmare for Hillary. I don't think people quite comprehend how weak a candidate Hillary is and how poor her strategy actually is working when she's almost getting beaten by a socialist. Now, in 2 days, we have the last primaries on both sides. Trump's already won. That's a non-issue. It's just a Pyrrhic victory at that point. Sort of scorched earth. Basically, he runs roughshod over the remnants of his opponents, who still kind of have delegates, may be there at the convention or not. He gets to finally stamp out the last embers of the Never Trump movement. For Hillary, it's not necessarily going to be so easy. She's got the specter arising now that at the Democratic convention there will be 20,000 or more people that have actively said, yes, I'm going to go protest because Bernie Sanders is not going to be the nominee. There are going to be tens of thousands of people there, and as we've seen, Sanders fans are the most violent in this election cycle, not Trump's fans. I have seen not one riot yet as the result of Trump's actual fans. I've seen people say that what he said sparked a riot. I can't quite figure out how that actually is the case. Hillary's fans are half asleep by the time she takes the podium. No, it's Sanders fans that are violent because a lot of them are self-proclaimed socialists and anarchists, and they tend to be younger, and you can get people with, I guess, more hormones, and they got more estrogen or testosterone. That's great, by the way. I have no problem with that. But yes, they're the ones throwing eggs and burning cars and smashing out windows. Not Trump's fans, not really Hillary's fans. They're too old and tired really to be much of a threat to anybody. You know, until Antifa starts walking down the street, nobody gives a fuck, I guess, at this point. They keep blaming it on Trump's rallies. Like in San Jose, they said, oh, well, Trump started this violence. The fucking mayor's there, the police commissioner's like, oh, yeah, we blame Trump. His fans weren't the ones initiating any form of violence. It's what I'm not quite comprehending how people can be so stupid. You may think Trump's the devil himself, but he's not the one that caused the other person's supporters to riot. Now, Sanders, of course, he came out and he tempered and he said, if you're given over to violence, I don't want you to call yourself my supporters. Good on him. That's one of the sensible things he has done, and he should get credit for that. But will he be the Democratic nominee? Unless there's a 10-point movement in the next couple of days in California, the answer is no. But again, I guess it's more likely, I think, that he will somehow magically supplant Hillary than that Hillary will supplant Trump in the general. I don't care that she's ahead by a point or a point and a half. She should have, according to the entire media and most foreign heads of state, and even a minority of people within the RNC, Trump should be like 20, 30 points behind, because his only supporters, if everything they were saying was true, should be a bunch of literal skinheads and Klansmen and people who happen to be both white and male, and they dropped out of high school. That should be his voting base, and yet it's obviously far more expansive than that. Mainly because Hillary Clinton is a chronic and pathological liar. It does help Trump's numbers. It's not all just his stunning abilities or his great charisma or anything like that. A lot of it is the fact that Hillary lacks charisma, has a very poor strategy, and is fighting out a 90s-style campaign in the modern era. But Trump University is going to matter to literally nobody in a month. You will forget all about this, everybody will, except those who are very politically minded, and will look back, and they'll remember, because this election is a bit of a turning point in American politics, because of the way in which it's being waged. We will look back, and we will say this was the turning point into the fully modern variant of campaigning, after sort of the missing link campaign of Obama, who took advantage of social media, but not the memes and the instant gratification side of social media, more the, just the generic Facebook posts or whatever. And of course, before that era, it's old style campaigning. Before 2008, very old style. The Bush era, you had Drudge, you had the very early rudiments of YouTube, in 2004. It had been around for a year. It was still a very primitive website. And before that, you don't have any of these social media sites. Social media as a concept didn't exist. You had chat rooms that were mostly text only, and then you had email. That's basically what or somebody's blog, essentially. That's all that there was, independent websites. You didn't have the large, gigantic tech firms with these platforms that can reach 1 million people in 5 seconds or less. It just didn't happen. So some of us will look back and we'll say, oh yeah, remember the Trump University thing? That was a laugh. People thought it was the end of his campaign. But I don't think it's going to be, because I don't think any of his fans care. I don't think independent voters will care. I think Hillary, in the general, when she ends up debating Trump, that's when he has the chance to gain more traction. Things will probably remain more or less even. There'll be days when Trump's a few points ahead, days when Hillary is a few points ahead, up until the actual debates. However, there is one outlier here. There's one thing that could change this prediction I'm making, which is, they'll remain about even. You might see a 10-point swing, but it'll last a week and then it'll go the other way, because that's what polling averages tend to do. They're not stable over time. If Sanders is woefully mistreated, and or it turns out that most of his fans aren't just bullshitting and really won't back Hillary, she will crash and burn long before the first debate. All Trump has to do is refine his message. He has to put more optimism in there, and he has to become a bit more coherent. That's all he has to do to win this election, people. That's really all he has to do. His opponent is too chronically weak, too much of a pathological liar, and has far too much baggage to get the I'm more trustworthy or more likable than my opponent things in. As far as attitude, as far as the social side of politics goes, Trump has already won. He won the second that he jumped into the race. By that token, message he's still lagging behind on a little bit, but think about it this way: the attitude is so hyper-partisan among the shrinking, dedicated Republican and Democratic fan bases, he doesn't have to worry about them any more than Hillary has to worry about partisan Democrats. This is an election in which far more states are up because the independent base is so much larger now. So many people feel so jaded after the Bush and Obama years. They feel so alienated. They feel like there are so many problems in D.C. that right now the independent base is far, far larger than that of either group of partisans. Those are the people that Trump and Clinton have to woo over. Clinton's ability to woo over independents, I think, is limited at best, because she's already taken so many sides on so many different issues that it's going to be difficult for her to actually focus in on these groups of people, pick them apart, and try to go after these swing states. She'll show up and campaign, but she'll be campaigning primarily to groups of people that already like her, and that's going to be the problem. She has suffered a severe decline in her general notability as compared with Trump, who got free airtime all throughout the primary process. Come the conventions, the Republican convention is going to be an absolute freak show. There will be bright lights everywhere and hula dancers and probably elephants dancing around on stage too, courtesy of Trump funding it himself at that point. And he'll ride roughshod over everyone and have a star-studded cast of other people that ran in the race and talk about what positions he might want to put them in. Hillary Clinton, meanwhile, is going to stand up there and be coronated in a very boring ceremony with protesters by perhaps the tens of thousands outside, while Bernie Sanders is trotted up on stage as the I also ran person, who she says, oh, he ran such a stellar campaign, never mind all the times I told him he was such a loser, he should just drop out already, and he refused to. See, when Trump called on others to drop out, they eventually did, didn't they? He's the last man standing. Hillary calls on Sanders to drop out. What does he do? No, why should I drop out? We can still technically win this thing. He's not wrong, by the way. He won't, but, mathematically, yeah, if he did a clean sweep of California, I suppose it's the case. And there's still the outside chance he could woo some superdelegates, enough to go into the convention and keep her from clinching it, and maybe make an argument for a second vote, or maybe he has a couple more superdelegates backing him because he's just more likable or something. It's still theoretically possible. This is going to continue to stick in her craw. She might go to general election mode and go start holding rallies and fundraisers and all the other things that she wants to do. But she's going to be hampered by the fact that people will point out this race technically isn't still over. You haven't actually been coronated the nominee. Trump, meanwhile, will say, I already clinched it. I clinched it after fucking Indiana. What are you talking about? And so there's going to be a disparity with how people view the two. The Republican convention will be one of the most televised political events in U.S. history. The Democratic convention, you think I'm going to bother watching it? What's it? The only reason I would is if I expected there was still the possibility that Sanders might come out on stage, say, oh, I got 100 superdelegates to back me, free ice cream for everybody in the audience. That's the only reason I would have to watch it. There's no chance I could vote for Hillary anyway. You know, I don't give a fuck about her fiscal plan because she's talking about, what, a 0.5% increase across the board in taxes. Okay, who gives a shit? But she's actively planning to go after the Second Amendment. She's right lockstep with Obama on the police state and surveillance. You know, if I want a candidate who's ambivalent about surveillance, I'd just vote for Trump and save myself a lot of money in the long run. So why would I even entertain the possibility of voting for Hillary? I found that fake ad funny. The one, they had some syphilis foundation there, and they took the dude from the syphilis poster and put it on there with a caption like, I'm man enough to vote for Hillary, are you? I thought that was funny because a lot of Hillary fans were too dumb to realize what it actually was from. And I'll say this, I keep wondering if the polls might be wrong anyway. Like, maybe Hillary's at like 5%. Maybe she's behind Johnson right now. I still, to this day, have never met a person who likes Hillary Clinton, let alone supports her. Have you ever met anybody, like a single person, who thinks, yeah, Hillary's a great person. She's so honest and trustworthy, has so many great ideas. Can you even name any of her ideas? She doesn't talk about them. She talks about there and spits this weird diatribe, this sort of verbal diarrhea about all the great things she's going to do, never makes any specific proposals. They aim this criticism at Trump. Yeah, a lot of it's just a bunch of, yeah, we're going to make America great again, sort of fist pounding on the podium, but he has actually made a few specific proposals, like we're going to build a wall on the Mexican border, and everyone remembers those. Hillary, meanwhile, hasn't done bullshit. Just like she didn't do shit for women when Bill was raping them constantly. No, she's boring, honestly, as a candidate. Trump University is a non-issue. Johnson, by the way, in a new poll is at 11.5%. That's pretty damn good. And perhaps I should make a video about that because polling firms are actually including Johnson for the first time, and you can see he's a force to be reckoned with. Capable of winning? No. Hell no. But a force to be reckoned with within politics at large, yeah, especially in those blue states that Hillary really wants, and she's sort of behind in. She's having difficulty in a state like Michigan, for Christ's sakes. Obama carried it handily by double digits and had no problem. Hillary's failing to crack like 5% there. Pennsylvania, I think it was like for Obama by 5 points or 6 points or something. She's about tied with Trump. This is going to be a real problem in the Rust Belt for her. The Trump carried this region handily. And if he chooses Kasich as his running mate, he'll carry it even more handily. I still say Kasich is, unless you're going to drag a dark horse VP candidate out of the woodwork, someone who wasn't running, some relative unknown, some popular governor or whatever that wasn't involved with the race at large. Unless you're going to do that, Kasich is probably the best man for the job. He's quiet, he's calm, he's conciliatory, he's from this same region, he's a popular sitting governor, he won his home state. It just adds an air of, he has a lot of experience, going back to the 80s. It adds an air of reliability to the ticket. Meanwhile, I'm still scratching my head thinking about who Hillary can even get to run with her. I can't think of, maybe Elizabeth Warren, but she likes Bernie Sanders. Feinstein would probably take up the job, but why would you want Feinstein on your ticket? I can't think of a single person, other than Obama, who obviously can't fill the role, in the Democratic Party at large, who would both be willing and capable of being a good VP. I can't think of a single person. Cuomo's outed himself as a severe statist. He's even getting shit from Salon now, so he's probably out. Biden, I suppose. I mean, he's never been actually the president, so he can theoretically do that, but he has expressed disdain for the very idea of remaining really in politics. He's been behind the scenes since his son died, so I don't think that's likely. Kerry, I think John Kerry might oddly enough be the best choice for Hillary Clinton. Two former secretaries of state under the same president, both former presidential contenders. Kerry actually becoming the nominee. I think John Kerry, oddly enough, would probably be her best choice as a VP nominee, and that's pretty fucking sad. That's about all. Peace out.